Welcome everyone. Thank you for tuning in. This is an event I've been waiting for eagerly for some time now. Very, very excited to bring you something that we have been putting together for quite a long time alongside the Realization Group. My name's Toby Babb, and I'm hugely thrilled to bring you today a panel of experts who I think have done incredible things over the last couple of years. Hosting FinTech Focused TV, as I have over the course of the last 18 months or so through the pandemic, has been an experience where I think I've learned more from speaking to some amazing people than I have done at any other stage of my 21 years in this industry. Part of that has been talking to companies and leaders who have defied the odds and turned the negative of the pandemic into a positive and done some amazing things for their customers. And over that time, there are 6 or 7 traits that we've found that appear over and over again. And we wanted to bring you a panel of people to really go through and talk through the recent Financial Markets Insights piece as brought to you by the Realization Group, where we are talking to a number of different people who are basically absolutely showing the best of those traits within it. So this panel are 4 companies who I've got tremendous respect for, huge excitement about, and really excited to bring them to you. So we will introduce each of them to you, but Raimonda, Thomas, Liam and Philip, thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to do a brief round of introductions. Raimonda, would you kick us off just by telling us a little bit about yourself and the company, please?
Yeah, a pleasure. Thank you very much for having us here today, Toby. I'm Raimonda Philip Miller, the CEO and founder of Monimos. We founded the company in 2012. It's a RecTech in financial services, and I myself have been in financial services for a little bit over 20 years now, and it's a huge passion of mine as well. Thank you.
You've weathered those 20 years a lot better than I have. Well done. Well done on that. Thomas, next over to you.
Sure. Tom McHugh. I'm the CEO at Finborn Technology. At Finborn, we build data platforms for asset managers, hedge funds, asset servicers, and pretty much anyone who wants to answer 2 fairly simple questions, which is what do I own and how much is it worth?
There it is, as eloquent as ever. Thank you very much, sir.
Sure.
Liam, over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Toby. And again, likewise, thanks for sending this up. I think it looks like quite an interesting discussion today. So I'm Liam Huxley. I'm the CEO and founder of Cassini. My background was running technology sort of dev teams within banks before then entering the fintech and entrepreneurial world a good 15 or 16 years ago. And Cassini specifically, we were founded to help, primarily help buy-side firms adjust to new regulations and the new sort of operating model for derivatives trading, and primarily to do 3 things. 1, bring transparency into their front and middle office. Secondly, to manage and reduce cost of carry of trade portfolios. And thirdly, to reduce their liquidity and collateral risks.
Fantastic. It's been great to see such a thriving story of what you've been doing in the business over the last year or so as well, and before. Last but no means least, Philip, how are you?
Very well, how are you?
Very good indeed, very good indeed. If you could introduce yourself and Solidatus, please.
Sure, so not that different from Liam. Liam, I spent most of my working life in banks, building up technology teams. I'm very lucky now to be part of founder at Solidatus with my friend and colleague, Philip Dutton, and we have built a piece of software that we hope will bring transparency and intellectual property retention to data-rich and regulated companies. And I think our tagline is, we will keep your bosses out of jail.
That's never a bad thing to have either.
Depends on the boss.
Very true, very true.
Or the job you want to keep, I suppose.
So 4 companies with extraordinary stories, and we're going to pick that out a little bit more as we go through. There's plenty to get through over the course of the next half hour or so. And then what we'll do is ask a couple of final questions and then throw it over to the Q&A. So as people are talking, for all attendees who are on board so far, please do use the Q&A section. We'll endeavour to answer as many questions as we possibly can throughout all of this as well. And the panelists have told me they have no fear about whatever comes our way. So please don't hesitate to put in your questions as they come through with what we're talking about. So the 7 habits of highly successful fintech leaders. No slight nod there to Stephen Covey and his 7 habits, but these are 4 companies that I've been looking at for the last 2 years with absolute awe. It's been an exceptional performance of massive headcount growth, massive logo growth, massive revenue growth. And that's against a backdrop of massive uncertainty at the same sort of time. And it's been really inspiring to talk to everyone and hear their journeys and read about it in the Financial Technologist magazine and the Financial Markets Insights paper from the Realization Group as well. Those 7 themes come through, and we'll look at every single area, but it's again things that I've heard time and time again as replicable habits that can happen in any business that seem common sense, but common practice is quite often the area where it falls down. One of the things that we've seen, and I know that you guys have absolutely epitomized, is the ability to capitalize on market opportunity. Everyone's, I think, always has been, particularly at the start of this, been very nervous to talk about the fact that this has been a time where opportunities present themselves, but good businesses are able to look at issues and be able to provide solutions to it. Raimonda, I'm going to start with you. The market has created problems for people across the industry, across the world, both socially, politically, and in terms of the working world. But I love and have always loved the theory of taking a negative and turning it into a positive. And I know that's what you and the team have done. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts on capitalizing on market opportunity.
Well, for us, actually, Toby, we founded the company, our RecTech, in 2012. And if you look back in 2012, RecTech wasn't even a concept in the marketplace. And in fact, a lot of people in those days thought we were either crazy or just had a vision that no one really could foresee at that time. Of course, little did we know in terms of, for example, COVID, but the reality in those days, in particular for me, there was absolutely no doubt that the market could not continue in the state it was. Back office in financial institutions was very, very, if you like, little invested in terms of technology. I absolutely love technology. I started my early days, my career in Saxo Bank, and Saxo Bank, they're pioneers in the technological sense, which actually really drove me to realize as a lawyer with my background that why is it we as lawyers don't really leverage on technology to bring actually the client really fast forward and enable them to comply. So I definitely would say that the technology element was definitely, we were in the early stage. The market was for sure not ready. We did not give up, not on the dream, not on the vision, not on the execution. We were insanely disciplined as a team to say, you know what, the market will need it. And there's no shred of doubt when you look at it now, in terms of RecTech solutions and how they're being actually, if you like, embraced in the market. It goes without saying there's no way that financial institutions today could survive without these type of solutions. And our focus areas on the client onboarding, the complexity is enormous. Globally, it's enormous. The regulation cross-border is enormous. And if anyone fools you to say we can do it using humans, it's just virtually impossible. That much we at least know. So absolutely, I mean, for us, it's actually severe dedication to the foundation and the belief that this is definitely something that we will see that the sector, whether it's the financial sector or other sectors, they will need it. So yes, we've had the doors bashed in our face many times, Toby, but we didn't give up. We continued working really, really hard. The technology foundation was ongoing. Nothing stopped us really. And now we actually can capitalize on it because the market is ready, and we're very proud of that.
That's fantastic. And capitalizing on that marketplace is something I know, Philip, that you've been keen to look at as well. And that's not just effectively saying, all right, your product's there and this is what it is, and wait for the doors to open. You guys have done incredibly well in scaling the company in extraordinary lengths over the last 18 months or so. Tell us a little bit about your take on capitalizing on the opportunities that come to you.
Well, I'm probably going to spin one of my strap lines at the moment. So, you know, the meme that grabbed me most over the last 18 months, I think, has been the one about what's revolutionized your business or digitized your business or brought your business further forward in technology. Was it the CIO, the CTO, the CDO, the chief executive, or COVID-19? And I think that for me is, you know, it epitomizes where we are. We're kind of in a bit of a war. You know, technology advances best when you've got real purpose and real drive. When a lot of red tape to a degree is thrown out of the window, you know, we see it in conflict all the time. But I think the real thing for real market opportunity for me has been the absolutely free-flowing acceptance that the old ways are ended. And actually, it's time to start disrupting. And you know, we are in the most disrupted of times. You know, whether we think we're coming to the end of it or not, the workplace, I don't think, will ever be quite the same again. There's going to be a forever acceptance that there has to be a better way of moving data, better transparency around data. A lot of the things that have been allowed to happen because of the pandemic, you don't want to roll them all back, but there's going to be a lot of scrutiny about stuff. And the opportunity for us, I think we built a company based on intellectual property sharing, transparency, at the root of it all, the demonstration of control. And that is something that if we're to really consolidate the gains, the technology advancements, and then like the acceptance that data, for example, it's the answer to lots of problems if we can use it properly. If we're to consolidate that, we have to have a good technology, as Ramonda said. We can't go back to a situation where there's paper trail and a person behind every single decision. We can't go back to a place where it's a people-centric decision all over the place. Being able to demonstrate that we can iterate forward in a more automatic, transparent and accountable way has been the opportunity for us. And we were just in the right place at the right time with enough of a grip on the market that we got a lot of approaches about it. And being able to actually, I don't know, capitalize on those approaches was our sweet spot this year. And we were very lucky to be able to do that. And that's led to a lot of great things for us. And it's been hard work, jolly hard work. But holding on to that now, I think for all we're worth as an industry, those gains for all of us is so important.
Having spoken to you at all hours of the morning, it's after long shifts in Asia and all that sort of stuff as well, I know exactly how much hard work you've put in to make that luck as well. So I think that
not just me as well.
That sort of ability for the team there to have those opportunities, but actually to have the confidence then and the backing and the structure to be able to do them has been a real high point of it. The second thing that I want to talk about is this ability, and this is a constant theme. I did an episode of FinTech Focus this morning with another company where we were talking about the importance of listening to customers and how that's had an impact on product and development and how agile companies have been over the course of the last couple of years. No more so than Cassini. Liam, I think this is something we've spoken about at length before, and one of the things that is very, I know you're very passionate about is that ability to listen to customers, to solve actual problems, and to provide real-time solutions to their ever changing issues that they're having at the moment. Tell us a little bit about your thoughts there and how you've made that a success.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think just before I should maybe think about that, I think just going to the capitalizing on the opportunity thought as well. There are different ways that you can kind of interpret, that kind of secret of success, if you like it. It's not just sort of capitalizing on the opportunity the market presents you in terms of needs and use cases, but it's also on different ways you can deliver solutions to the market. So one of the other things that's been very notable, I think certainly in our world, I'm sure in probably everyone else's in the last 2, 3, 4 years, is the kind of shift to acceptance of externally hosted solutions and using the cloud in different ways. We offer solutions which are both SaaS but also single tenant dedicated hosting, where it can be location specific, etc. But that allows, that creates an opportunity to allow you to deliver a flexible solution in a new way that's cost efficient, quicker to get on board with, etc. So it's kind of that principle of looking at opportunity and understanding what opportunities the market is presenting you applies in lots of different dimensions of building a good fintech business, I think. And it ties into this theme about listening. I mean, if you step back, finance is a complex world and constantly changing. And so is technology. Technology is changing at light speed. I mean, I used to code and build solutions, and now I don't understand half of what my developers are talking about every day. And the guys who've been here 3 years don't understand what the new guys are doing. It's a very rapidly changing world. Yeah. So you can't stand on your rest on your laurels, but you stand on your own previous set of understanding and principles and models, and expect that to carry you forward. You have to be looking at what's happening and listening to primarily your customers, but market participants, partners, etc. And you're as much listening to what they're actually saying, which is, can you help me do this? Can you help me solve that? They'll be asking you direct questions, but also listening to the things they're not saying explicitly. What are the implied questions? What are the challenges that are distracting them? What maybe is taking them their focus off the project that you're working with them on, and are there ways that that threads back into your world, and that creates an opportunity to kind of figure out new opportunities. Again, cycling back to the previous point, figuring out a new opportunity you can then potentially capitalize on. But it also helps you figure out ways that you can provide more value and benefit to your customers. Because if you're tuned into what they're saying and they're not saying, and listening and thinking and then responding with that, active listening, which is a cliche people use, right? Bringing back new solutions, that helps them. It helps strengthen and deepen the relationship you have with the customer, and it helps you figure out new value propositions and use cases for your system, which you can then deploy and hopefully helps grow the business as a whole. I mean, in our case, the obvious sort of scenario was last year, COVID hit, everyone's life changes, everyone has to sort of start to change their operational model, what resources are where, et cetera. But it also had this impact of really speaking the market, creating a lot of volatility, and that sort of highlighted what situations like that do is they clarify the situation. Suddenly the world becomes black and white. All these kind of difficult problems and projects and change projects people have, some of those drop away and you focus on the things that really matter. And tuning in during that period and very actively engaging with our customers and our prospects, firms that we hadn't quite signed up yet, we were working with, brought out of the woodwork a bunch of specific use cases in terms of analytic scenarios and stress models that really would help these guys manage and reduce the impact of that volatility. And we were able to, for those firms that have signed up already, respond quickly, roll out or help them use our API and our analytics layers to deliver those solutions. And then that, of course, creates great examples for you to take back into the business, take back into the sales process and the sort of marketing, and it uses examples to future potential clients. So it's a virtuous circle. You actually help deliver value to your client, which is the most important thing. But you help over the short to medium term, then actually strengthen your product and your business.
I think that listening to what they're not saying has been a very interesting theme of everyone I've been speaking to as well. And it's it always takes me back to the Henry Ford quote of faster horses and such like. And what better a link to bring us in the Henry Ford of fintech in Tom. Tom, tell me about a little bit of your thoughts of customer listening, because Finborn's been incredible at looking at problems and actually providing real-time value for that as well.
I always find this a very complex thing, right? Because as you end up with sort of halfway between what Liam said in terms of actively listening to customers and making sure you're engaged in the conversation and figuring out how that feeds back into your product, and what Ramonda said in terms of you have to have a vision, build it, and the market will eventually come to you. And somewhere in the middle of that is the sweet spot, right? So you need to listen to your customers and your prospects, but only insofar as they have something that you can help them with, right? You can't be just a company that's driven by, somebody asked for this today, somebody asked for something else tomorrow. It needs to align with what you're trying to do, and there needs to be shared value in it, right? So the way we look at it is sort of a bit like Simon Sinek wrote a very good book, The Infinite Games, right? You have to have a target. It has to outlast you at the company. It has to be a collective goal that you and your customers or partners in and have the same belief in, and it has to be all about that reputation first when you deal with those customers. And I think if you can manage to find a sweet spot in there for you and your company to grow, then that's great. But I think the problems that people run into is when they think they're bigger than that, right? Or they have they're operating in an ecosystem that isn't fostering them. Right back to the first question, there's a piece of advice somebody gave me a few years ago that at the time I was like, that's nonsense. Markets make companies and people destroy them, and it's true, right? Like, markets are making our companies right now, and it's up to us to safeguard them and make sure that we're participating in a way that's sustainable and win-win for everyone.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's a fascinating way of looking at it. It sort of absolutely ties in with my view of people being, the center of everything that moves companies and businesses further forward. And I think that's it's very, very interesting for me, this sort of this customer piece and listening to customers. And I think all of the companies on here I know have done a lot of that over the course of the last year. But it's adding value through the customer journey. I spoke to a lot of people this time last year who were still saying, right, we've almost stopped selling. And I think that the state of sales almost changed demonstrably at that sort of stage, where it became about adding value, and marketing came a lot tighter to sales teams, and people were looking there to say, right, my customers are going through difficult times at the moment. I need to look at how I can add more value to that. Philip, tell us a little bit about you and the team and how you've managed to really add value to your customers throughout their journey so far.
Well, this is a question that's, I guess, got several parts to its answer. One of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on is that when you start using our software, we can show you insight really quickly, and being able to show someone something during a demo about their own organization has always been it's kind of pleasing. It can sometimes disrupt us. You can get someone worried about something a bit too early. You show them something that's not quite the way that they imagine. But on the flip side, if you're doing it at a time of high stress and you can give someone insight really quickly, actually that's really good, and it does cement a relationship. Being able to show immediate value, where we're in an industry that kind of has a 4-year horizon on value, traditionally has a 4-year horizon on value, has been, I think, part of the pieces that shows the disruption that's around and available within the industry right now. People are people, and at the end of the day, we've all been through this really disrupted time, and being able to give someone confidence about the fact that they're picking the right tool for the job, I think is really very important. Being able to, at a distance, get your message over. So to all the branding stuff, I'm sure it's a similar story all around. The ones that the industries, or the players in the industries that have been really successful, are the ones that have been able to reach out and talk to people without actually going to meet them. There's no trade fairs. There's highly successful things like this, that your fintech series, for example. But that isn't the same as was going on a Department for International Trade, trade mission abroad, and going and meeting customers, and they come to you that way. You've had to get your message over in a way that's not only authentic and believable, but it's speaking to what the customer wants up front. And then you can't just say things at the moment and then not be able to produce the goods. So being able to get over it and adding value right from the very beginning, from the proofs of concept, from the pilots, into really into production, and being able to do a whole bunch of things which is making their lives easier. It's not just about your product, it's about how easy is your product to deploy. Can you speak to all the parts of the organization which are, and certainly for the early part of the last 18 months, quite dysfunctional. People were learning how to work from home in a lot of cases. It might have been easier for some of us to just pick up our laptops and move off. But actually, a lot of our customers were going through massive internal changes and making decisions about stuff at the same time. So being able to give them comfort that they were picking the right product and that it was going to continue to provide value all the way through the implementation, and making it easy for them, really, for me, it has been absolutely key. If you were going to be difficult, traditional, you aren't going to make it in the last year and a half. No way. If you were going to say a lot of things that were going to take 3 years when they were in an emergency, you weren't going to survive. And I think that's the same for all of the success stories I've heard. And your series has got to have been, you will have uncovered things like this all the way around. It's the ones that were providing almost immediate relief, as well as, continuing to work with the customer through that period of uncertainty, and then emerging the other side as the stronger partnership, the ones that will have done the best, I think.
Absolutely. And Liam, I can see you nodding through that as well. Enhance your thoughts.
Yeah, absolutely. I think B2B, if you think about it, we're technology companies working in a specific domain area, delivering solutions that hopefully improve our customers' businesses and lives, right? being in that world is quite a different thing to being in, say, B2C, where you've got a much more sort of broader and diverse market. It's within our world, it's much more about a long-term business anyway. It's about becoming part of your client's world and infrastructure. A really successful business will be someone that they expect to be able to rely on and turn to, not where they just pay a license fee and sign a click-through agreement and then don't speak to you for 5 years. That's where this sort of idea of adding value comes in. It's multidimensional. It's partly about, as we were saying, sort of adding value at each step of your relationship with them, but it's much more about this idea of as their process changes. So quite often, I'm sure we all find the same thing. You start off engaging with a customer, they've got an initial sort of project and use case, but that's the start of a journey for them. They're involved on a longer term change program, or they're expecting to be able to have to adapt to future regulations or requirements, and becoming part of that. So that, again, time back into listening, time back into this idea of sort of innovating as you go along with them, so you can add value as they change, and they can kind of rely on you to be part of their solution at each step of the journey. That I think is really key to creating a very sticky and long-term relationship, and to trivialize it, upsell opportunities and abilities to grow and expand your kind of commercial relationship. In our world, it also has another dimension which won't necessarily apply to every business, but because where Cassini sits in our client organizations, we interact with and have solutions for each of the functional silos from front, middle, and back office. So it's another way of thinking about, adding value across the customer journey, maybe rather than sort of through it. And those are groups and technology silos that quite often don't speak to each other, aren't well integrated. They have different lenses on the world, different views of how to think about information. So one of the other things that we focus on is important is creating transparency and a seamless sort of connectivity across those layers that helps bring value from what all the back office groups are doing into the front office and the middle office. So it's another way of thinking about this idea of adding value across that customer journey. And I'd just say, going back to the idea about the previous point around sort of, should you be listening to your customers and innovating based on that, or should you be leading the way, the Henry Ford idea of, creating something that the customer hasn't thought of yet. And I think the answer is you have to be both. Cassini, we certainly, the mission statement we wrote down at the start was a product that no one had thought of implementing, bringing this connectivity across front and back, and took a while, as Raimondo was saying, took a while for the market to come to us. So, you have to innovate and set out a new concept, a new way of thinking about a certain problem area. But at the same time, Henry Ford or Steve Jobs with the iPhone didn't have any idea when they released their first products how that thing would be used, how it would evolve, what users would actually want to do with it. Yeah. So you have to listen to customers and interact and refine your solution set as you go forward.
That's where this iterative process of product development comes into play.
It's really bringing the sort of juxtaposition of those two things together, and that's not always. Some companies fall on one side or the other, and they fall away, they fail. So you have to kind of navigate that road.
There's we've mentioned as well a little bit before about the significance of people, and alongside that, Simon Sinek was mentioned, whose original works was all about start with why and purpose. One of my big passions is engaging teams and seeing companies there who've really worked really hard to get the very best out of their teams in this scenario. Raimondo, I know you're very passionate about this as well. Talk to us about how driving purpose throughout the business and maximizing your team in a very difficult thing, and looking after your team has been central to your growth as well.
Yeah. I would say at Monimos, our foundation built is through our amazing team. And I'm a huge fan of Jim Collins, where he talks a lot about this topic, actually. And in particular, if you look at some of his chapters in Good to Great and similar books, there's a lot about, as a leader in these organizations, you have to make the tough decisions. There definitely, I'm a strong believer, and there are people on the right bus, and there are some that need to get off that bus. And to be frank with you, one thing we've done incredibly well at Monimos is exactly that. And that doesn't mean the ones that are off, they're bad people. They're just the wrong people in that journey. And some of them, you know, they're amazing candidates in the market in general. But of course, you have to really drive that purpose, and you have to make sure that everyone in the journey at the company believes in it and they're truly passionate about it as well. We're very, very focused and disciplined about what are we good at, you know, what is Monimos, what makes us different, what makes us great, what makes us special. And that's the area we really, really, truly heavily focus on. And of course, yes, Monimos was built on my dream to actually revolutionize the entire sector, cleanse data, pull data in sets, and figure out how to actually push it out to the client. In our case, it's the financial sector, and to create that triangular setup where we're actually protecting the underlying investors, making sure our clients, the financial institutions, they're doing their job and they're doing their job well, and at the same time allowing the regulators to regulate and to continue order in the market. And of course, that means that we have to really, really be focused on every single, if you like, part in that journey. We can't ignore one and deliver for the other. It is a triangle, and we have to make sure it's connected all the time. And of course, as a team, it's hard work. Absolutely, it's hard work. You start these companies in the belief in a couple of years you're done in terms of, you know, amazing product. You'll never be done. These companies will never be done. And that's what's amazing about them, because we're constantly evolving, constantly bringing new things to the market, constantly listening to each other, constantly listening to our clients, to pretty much everyone in the equation. And of course, that's hard work. And if you can't live that part in Monimos, it's simply not the journey for you. But we love it. We absolutely love it. We know we're changing the world. We know we're changing the way the market sees this. But of course, with that comes a lot of hard work. And our team are exceptionally disciplined at believing that this is the future. And we are actually paving the future. And of course, that comes with definitely a lot of hard work and commitment from all sides to make sure that the vision, we see it in the same way. And the company actually, Monimos, Somnium, backwards is dream. And the idea behind the company, actually, when we founded it, it wasn't a dream for me. It's a dream for the company, it's a dream for everyone that comes into Monimos. What's your dream? What can you add to Monimos to make it one of the best companies in the world, in the area that we are in? And that's pretty much the foundation of how the company was built, and will continue to grow from here onwards.
There's been a smile sort of appearing across my face as you were talking there, because I love that, and it's so often a theme that I'm getting talking to. I know I've spoken to Tom, to Liam, to Philip on the show before, about that same sort of passion for what you guys are doing, and you can see it from talking to the team and people in that business. Just that sort of unbelievable passion for doing things there, to wanting to be the best in the world at what you're doing, to wanting to do things that change the shape of the industry you're in, and creating those cool solutions. I think essential not only to keeping your best talent, to attracting it as well. And those companies, I think, who've really worked hard to engage and look after and listen to their teams as much as listen to their clients, have done really well with that too. I'm going to streamline things because this is moving at incredible pace on the clock. So I'm going to freestyle a little bit here, guys. So bear with me as we go through it. One of the other things which I think has come up a lot, and Thomas, I'm going to come to you on this, is is a word that's come up more than ever before, I think, over the last 18 months or so, which is about about friction reduction. You know, the amount of ease of how tech companies are looking to make things easier, less stressful, to remove inefficiencies, to create efficiencies in process. That's very much at the heart of what you've been doing with Finborn, right? Yeah, absolutely. And it's sort of in everything we do, right? It's I know Leah mentioned it earlier, right, where you have to look at the world and bring new solutions to it. We tend to look at it and go, right, the customer needs to do A, B, C, D. If you reimagine the process this way, they all just drop out at the bottom of it as a result of giving them something they didn't even know they needed. And I think it was Philip who said it, where, you know, you have to prove value at every stage, right? There's a lot of companies now who talk about, you know, we're on the cloud, we're API, we're, you know, all of these good things, but for us, those are just the things that bring efficiency now, right? Open APIs are efficient. Why? Because, well, we don't have to build software development kits. Swagger and SwaggerGem will do it for us, right? It takes away some of our focus from stuff that used to take years to do to now taking, well, weeks to do instead, right?
And everywhere you look, we use standards where it makes us efficient. We use a new way of looking at the problem set where it makes it efficient for us and the client. And at every point, we try to deliver value through that. So we have you can sign up to our platform for free. It's not the old model of, get a PowerPoint, talk to us, like just go check it out. Everything that we say we do is API first, not because we think that's just revolutionary, right? And it's the Steve Jobs way of doing this, or Henry Ford, or whatever it is. It's because actually what it does is it breaks down one of the barriers to say, can I open the bonnet and look under the hood? You don't have to. We've given you the schematics for it, and the world has changed in that the IP isn't valuable anymore. The team you've built to actually make it happen is the thing that's valuable now.
Yeah, absolutely. And that sort of ability that you see from all good tech companies who are looking at streamlining processes, I think isn't just restricted to the financial technology space, but it's an absolute feature, I think, of the last 5-10 years, but it's probably been thrown into more of a spotlight over the last 18 months than ever before. And I've loved seeing that. And actually, what all of you guys have been doing is really focusing on that as a core theme as well. All of you all of the people in this on this panel have seen their companies grow at a tremendous rate over the course of the last year, and in certain cases that's been about taking investment. In other cases, that's just been about sheer expansion. Philip, we've spoken about this on the show before. I know there's been a phenomenal trebling of headcount, if I'm not mistaken, over the course of the last
450%, I think. Yeah.
There we go. Yeah, and growing. And that's that's been a business that's completely changed shape. And I know at certain stages there are people that you haven't met. That investing in growth is something that takes courage, particularly during that sort of phase, but also a bit of skill in communications. Talk to me about the importance of investing in growth when people are in that sort of defense mode at various stages, and what prompted you to have the courage to go on the offense.
Well, there's a lot to be said for seizing the market opportunity, of course. The particular niche that we sit in has a couple of incumbent players who have defined the industry, and for better or for worse, they need disrupting now. And to sort of extend Thomas's point a bit, I mean, you can't just do disruption for disruption's sake. You have to have something tangible at the end that actually improves the efficiency of your customers. So for us, it was about trying to bottle what we were doing and acknowledging that we needed to sort of weaponize it in some ways that was beyond the capability that we had at the time. We had grown very happily on our sales book, and there came a point when we were looking at and thinking we could probably continue growing on that, and then we'll get swallowed at some point. But we actually think that we've got something which should redefine our industry, and the only way we're going to do that is by being masters of our own fate. And the only way we're going to be masters of our own fate, for better or for worse, was to allow ourselves to take some investment, because it was on our terms. Right? We were in a strong position to solicit really high quality investment, and we've talked about this, Toby. It was the most surreal process. I mean, imagine, and I guess this has happened over the last year. You're going to buy a new house, but the only way you can do that is go to that new house is over Zoom. You can't get a feeling for the place. You can't see the place. You can't really see the garden properly. You can't see cracks in the wall or anything like that. You have to go in there, and you're going to get one impression before you get to go again over maybe a slightly better Zoom call. So that was sort of a taking investment over VC over VC, I guess. And
there's a
that
catchphrase.
For us was a leap of faith. We had to assess people. Now I like to think of myself as a good judge of character, but that's always been in person. It's two-dimensional. Judging of character is difficult. And to have courage in our convictions to take that forward and to take the investment. The decision was, do we want to lead the market like we think we can? Can we do that from a small, relatively weak position where we've got the same voice. So for a while, everyone had the same voice in the world, right? We didn't know how to market ourselves as a whole collective world for a little while. So the web was a really leveling factor. We got a lot of incoming stuff, and we realized that had to persist, that we had to be able to extend beyond our means. And that meant taking the investment. The courage of our convictions was that we would take the investment and it would pay dividends for us. And I think talking about the team element, goodness me, growing a team over Zoom, I still shudder at the thought. I tried very hard, to see every new member of staff at least once in person, even if it was just to lob a computer across a hedge, while being 2 meters distance. Just to let people know that they were working for a real company, and that sort of feeds back, I think, and it gives people an impression on how they should deal with your customer and how you should be thinking about people and everything like that. But really, the courage of our convictions and growing the right team, investing in growth, it was about us making a statement that we weren't going to just accept that the market was a bit bigger. That it was like we really wanted to go after the market. We recognise that our industry is it's a big investment industry. You start on a journey in data, and that journey goes for years and years and years. You'll be building long-term relationships up, and actually, we had to have the capacity to deal with the incoming work. We had to have the capacity to keep customers satisfied all the way through it, to all the previous points, not just seeing the opportunity, but seizing it, making the customer happy with it, innovating through it, coming out the other side with a better product. All of those things have to happen simultaneously. And really the trick is keeping all those balls in the air and spin the plates at the same time, so nothing comes clattering down around you, while getting yourself in a place where you build the right corporate culture when you have very little interaction with people. That's kind of reversing now. Like, we are just sort of getting to meet people. Are we really happy in each other's company yet? Yes, I think at one level we are. But are we anticipating it? Are we getting to that place? That's still a long way off from every company. I think we're not. I don't think any of us who've grown like this over the last year are quite at that innate, point. We're bluffing a lot of the way through.
Yeah.
And to all Ramona's point about, are you the right type of person to work at Solidatus? Will you, do you understand what it really means? I think that's been the trick, getting that message over and trying to get people onto that page as quickly as possible, or to have them say, what, actually, it's a bit of a journey, this one.
Yeah.
But once they're on the journey, they're happy with it, because they're going to have to put everything into it.
And that's been the fascinating thing for me. 21 years in the recruitment industry, and seeing how companies have adapted to that and being able to grow their businesses in such a different way has been stunning. I'm gonna burst through the last of the points, and I'm going to ask you for the magic eighth in a very simple sentence, because we've got a couple of questions that are coming in that I want to make sure we get to as well. So Liam, I'm going to address this one to you to finish off the 7 habits, which is about companies who are constantly innovating and challenging the norm. That innovation, I think, has been central to a lot of the things that we've been talking about with the special sauce of Cassini. Tell me a little bit about what you've seen from that.
Yeah, I think it touches on a lot of the points that we've discussed in the round anyway, and it goes back to that point that we were saying, Tom was saying earlier about, you don't want to be in a position as a tech company just sort of delivering solution to each specific kind of requirement that comes in from a client. You have to be looking at a bigger picture and a bigger solution, and that really is the key. We're as a tech firm, we're in a lucky position. I mean, sure, all of us are, right? We're in a position where we see lots of different clients and potential clients, how their processes work, what their challenges are, how they're handling and addressing them. And if we're smart, we're in a position where we can actually take that, synthesize it, figure out what the commonality is, what the sort of best underlying framework or solution set or architecture is going to look like to address all of those requirements and the next set of problems which maybe people haven't figured out yet. So innovating, going back to Cassini, we started off by saying, we're going to create this solution which can tell you the total carry cost of a trade before you execute, which was something that no firm could do at the time, because it required all this data and information that didn't even exist in a lot of firms. It was outsourced and whatever else. So you innovate in terms of solving a problem that is going to become a much more important and significant problem to a customer by, again, looking at, you can see the big market trends, you're talking lots of firms, you can look down the road and see what might happen, what might change, what is going to become important that isn't now, and then figure out what the right answer has to look like. Building that answer is not always easy, but that's what we all enjoy doing, right? I mean, that's the fun part of this job to a large extent, is figuring out cool solutions for problems that no one's solved before. So that is part of the lifeblood. You know, innovation really is the lifeblood of fintech. I remember when I started my first business back in 2005, we were in the fintech world and in capital markets world, we were really unusual. We were a small startup doing something that hadn't been done before, and there weren't a lot of peers, weren't a lot of firms at that time solving, bespoke, domain expert problems. When Cassini started a few years ago, it was a different story. There's lots of funds like everybody here, and lots of funds. We're bringing huge amounts of expertise and innovative ability and creative ability to solve problems in a new way, and with all of these tool sets that we talked about to deliver those to customers in a much more efficient way. So yeah, it's just a constant. It goes back to the listening, goes back to thinking about how you solutionize things and how you scale. And if you don't innovate, you die. To use a cliche that's been overused. Someone else will come along, see what you've done, and go, that's great. You've invented a sort of new solution. There's a new concept there, and someone will improve on it if you don't innovate and keep moving forward. So, it really just is the bread and butter of what we do. It does tie a little bit in. Think about the secrets of successful fintech firms. It ties a little bit back into some of the other things we talked about in terms of the team and the culture as well. And that point about investing for growth. If you're going to innovate, you have to have the capacity to do it. You have to have the right people and the right organization structure and the right team sizes to allow you to keep innovating while still delivering and supporting your customers with the products that you've actually sold them. So it ties back into making sure that you've got the right funding to do that, and that you're planning ahead, because hiring the right people and keeping your team culture intact and keeping the right mindset of smart, collaborative people on board takes time. As Raimondo was saying, not everybody's suited to this kind of world. It's not easy. You can't just hire 30 more people overnight without maybe shedding a lot of them along the way, right? So you have to be always thinking ahead. What are the innovations? What are the changes? What's the product set? What's the capacity needed to deliver that?
Yeah, I think that's sort of the industry's been guilty at various stages of over-engineering opportunities and trying to innovate too much for their customers, to give their customers things that they don't actually really need. And coming back to that whole theme of really listening to what customers need, that to me has been an absolute common thread, golden thread between everyone that we're saying. So let's move, before we move into a couple of questions, very, very quickly, I'm going to ask you for that. This has been a time of unprecedented change, which has been overused as phraseology. But if there's one golden bit of advice that's outside those 7 things that you think has been instrumental to the success of your business over the course of the last 18 months, what would that be? Raimondo, I'm going to come to you first, if I may.
I would say the main thing is believe in the vision. Believe in it. If it's there and you can see it, it's going to happen.
Love that. Fantastic. Thank you very much. And you can see that absolutely screaming off the page when you were talking about it as well. Tom, over to you.
I'd say it's the biggest change we've seen is you have to have a good sense of the value proposition for everyone, right? You have to have for employees, you have to know when they're joining, what they're going to get out of the trade, and it has to be more than money. And you have to know when it doesn't work for them anymore from their perspective, not from the company's. And for your customers, the same has to be true as well, right? We move away from pricing long-term deals with huge divorce bills into actually, if there's no value there for it, and then please move somewhere else, because we care about the end investor and that they're getting value. So we should be providing value, and if we're not, we should be willing to walk away.
I think there's that bravery and courage is a big part of what everyone's been talking about there. And I think sometimes people sit there about making big decisions about when the right time to offboard clients and people is at the stage for the right time of your journey. And that's something which probably hasn't been talked about as much as it should have been on the show and things we've looked at before. So really good information to pass on as well. Thank you. Liam, over to you.
So I'd say the additional thing, what Raimondo said, domain expertise is key. Being a domain expert, being a trusted partner. But the big sort of additional secret, I think, that's been key to our success, I'd say, is transparency. I love the kind of concept and the mindset that transparency brings, internally. We talked about onboarding new staff and team members during this period. It's very hard, as we've said, to do that while they're remote and to get a sense of the team. But having processes within your organization where you can share information, where you are almost 100% transparent. There's probably 1 or 2% of information that can't be completely shared and open within your organization, but keeping that top down, bottom up, and across teams is key, so that you build the ability for people to work together and help each other when the crunch points come and the stress points come. Being transparent about that, we can help each other sort of get through those periods, and being transparent with clients about what you can and can't do.
Over communication, I think, has been something which has come through both internally and externally a lot through. One
of the most powerful things. Sorry to interrupt, Toby. One of the most powerful things in sales with a client is to say no.
Yeah.
If they ask you about, can you do ABC, and if you genuinely can't, say no. That's just honesty, and that helps build that trust in the long term.
Definitely. Mr. Miller, if you will be the icing on the cake on this 8th secret.
The icing on the cake.
Always the best part.
Well, I think it's the same for any founder. I don't know about the rest of you. I'm sure it's similar. You can't leave anything left in the tank. You have to use everything that you've got. Belief comes from the core. Hard work is a way of expressing belief. In many respects, you have to leave something infectious behind, not only with your own staff but with your clients. You have to be, so if you to a degree you're going to be an expert in what you're doing, or at least an expert in what someone wants you to do. You're going to have to express that enthusiasm in every possible term, even when it's difficult, even when it feels like the darkest day. One of the questions up, I'm not jumping in it too much, because it's sort of the way that I'm approach things. To become successful, you have to be able to last the course. You can't expect something to come to you. You're going to have to go and get it, and that, to a degree, at the beginning is through, and it's always going to be the same, but it's different levels. It's going to be through hard graft. You're doing everything from payroll to legal to everything. And eventually you'll start to get to your product. And when you get to the product, you can't be exhausted. Your product is the most, it's the most interesting thing you do. It's the most engaging thing you do. You have to be all over it with enthusiasm. Doesn't matter how many hours you've done over the preceding month, year, you have to approach it feeling fresh every single day. And that's everything. Yeah. If you can't do that, you're not going to be authentic to people, or your staff, or your families. I mean, everyone has to be on this journey with you. It becomes an obsession, and it needs to be a good obsession. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the infectious enthusiasm is one of the things that I'm most passionate about, and probably one of the things that I've loved most about all of the interviews, over 200 interviews that I've done over the last year or so, has been I'll come off every single one of the calls and just be excited about the opportunity, excited about the marketplace, excited about talking to people who are genuinely passionate about what's been coming through. So, 4 excellent pearls of wisdom there to add on to 7 more, which we can do. So we've got a formula here for making massive success for everyone else there afterwards. I'm going to throw in because it's been too difficult not to rush through all of this stuff, but I'm going to get a couple of questions in here. One's come through from Emma Parry, and it's to you, Ramonda. Are you finding it still hard to get firms to understand the client classification, suitability, functionality of your solutions? Is this still taking more time and effort than it should, given the stringent regulatory requirements?
Yeah, thank you, Emma, for putting this question forward. You're always going to be challenged by the market. One of the biggest challenges I think every single one of us have on this call is if it's a no-brainer for anyone to take the solution if they understand actually their problem and what each one of these solutions on this call is trying to solve and is solving. So absolutely, and for us actually the challenge is ever changing, partly because a lot of people in the financial sector now, in particular financial institutions, they're worried. I mean, in the legal function, in the compliance function, they're worried about their job, they're worried about their reputation. There's more accountability being thrown for sure in the UK, and definitely the rest of the world is following suit these days. So absolutely, and actually the hard sell isn't to sell it if you understand it. In fact, to clients that understand it, it's literally minutes for them to say it's a no-brainer. We need it. This is an absolute nightmare for us. It's taking insane amounts of time. It's actually creating a frustration across the institution as well as our clients, i.e. their underlying clients. And then you meet others that look at us and say, what exactly is this doing? And of course, the question from our side is, oh my God, do they really not understand what they're doing, considering they are actually leading roles in these institutions? But that's just how it is. And I'm sure every single one of us will be challenged by that. And the market is moving. The regulators are definitely not taking a lot of these breaches lightly. And in many cases, it's not because these particular institutions or individuals in these institutions, they're turning a blind eye. They actually don't get it. It's as simple as that. And that's no different from meeting a great lawyer to a good lawyer to a bad lawyer, or a good accountant to a bad accountant, and so on. That's just how this space is. And that is our challenge. Our challenge is to sell to those that get it and to those that absolutely have no idea. And that's wonderful, because we're facing these challenges all the time and every day. And that is something that we as a company have to work even harder at, making sure that the product, the technology, the software jumps out at pretty much everyone in the chain, and to make them get it, to actually make them get it and empower them to see what these type of softwares can actually do for them and their organization. So yes, of course we are.
Fantastic, thank you very much. I'm going to move over to Eva's question from KPMG now, and Tom, I'm going to throw this to you. Regarding sustainability versus use of leading edge tech, stability versus moving fast and innovating. In your experience, how willing have your customers been to consider the use of AI technologies, and were they ready to provide the right data quickly to architect the system?
Wow, there's a lot of questions in there. So in terms of
that's why I threw it at you.
Yeah, in terms of the use of AI technology, absolutely. But the way that we always advise people on this is, like, if the answer to the question is, if an answer to the question that contains the word probably is good enough, then AI and ML are your friend. And if the answer isn't, or probably in that answer isn't good enough, then you probably need to be looking elsewhere. As in, if you're dealing with exact systems that the regulator needs and you're dealing with trade volumes, you probably don't have a big data problem anyway, and you can't be sort of dealing with something that's approximately correct. So yes, people are willing to consider it, but for the right set of questions. In terms of giving people, or people giving us the data that we need to power the system, that actually hasn't been a problem, because in terms of trustworthiness, governance of their data, all that kind of stuff, we have to have that conversation long before they give us any data. And in terms of the data they give us specifically, it's their entire books and records. So other than their data controller obligations for their employees' data, there isn't really anything more sensitive they deal with.
Fantastic, thank you very much.
Apologies for the halo that appeared in the corner in the middle of that answer. So
well, no, it's such a good one that the halo came out. I like that. It's obviously divine intervention. Yeah. I'm going to try and get two more in very, very quickly. So Liam and I'm going to go with you first, and then come over to you, Philip. So brief answers. We are racing through time. This one comes from Andrew Freeman. As tech companies, to Liam, as tech companies, implementing your solutions invariably leads to some attrition of headcount and teams performing various functions in traditional ways. How have you overcome the challenge of persuading potential clients, senior stakeholders concerned, rightly or wrongly, the adoption of your solution may make them unpopular leaders?
Yeah, so the reality, actually, and I'll be very brief, but it's a very interesting question. The reality of the answer to that in Cassini world is that that's not actually very often the case. The problems or the value that Cassini adds is really addressing things that firms just haven't done before at all internally, partly because they haven't maybe had the kind of the coordinated information or data set to do it, and maybe it takes a tech investment they've just never made. So generally when we're selling Cassini, we're not sort of creating, removing operational people's jobs or anything like that. There's sometimes a bit of a conflict between, do we buy Cassini or do we build something in-house? You have that sort of, you're up against, the IT architects who just want to go off and build the fun solution and, want to get the budget for that instead. That's generally an easy argument to win because it's a cost argument. I have had this scenario in my previous company 2 or 3 times where we were sort of replacing in hedge funds processes where they had their own kind of internal models and reconciliation processes. And generally the kind of way I always thought about it and tried to persuade clients to think about it was, it's freeing up resource to do something more interesting and more valuable. It's not necessarily that we're freeing up those resources so you can fire them. It's actually, you can be a popular leader by saying, we're going to bring this tool set in to do the boring, what no one really enjoys doing. How can we make better use of those people who know our organization, know our business, and add better value to the business? So that's really the sort of the perspective. I mean, obviously in some cases it might be fintech solutions which just replace a whole operations team, but that's not generally very common. I think that's much more of an outsourcing kind of scenario.
Perfect. Thank you very much. We are right on time, but so Philip, I'm going to ask you this brief one because it's too good a question to ignore from John Owens. Congratulations all on creating successful businesses. From a sales and marketing standpoint, what activity do they believe was most successful in getting them from zero to where they felt viable? Love that question. Gosh,
it's a chicken and an egg scenario. I think sales get you sales. At the end of the day, you go up the ladder. When we first started selling, we were selling at a point in the corporate hierarchy, which was probably analogous to where we sat as individuals when we were sort of in industry. As we've been able to get our message over, I think we've been able to talk to more and more influential people within the corporate hierarchies. And that in and of itself allows you to do a couple of things. So as we've been able to sell to more senior stakeholders, those guys are also telling their mates, this is how it started anyway. They're telling their mates, well, what solution have you got for this? Or why aren't you using that? Because it's saving us X amount of time or X amount of something or other, or time to market, blah, blah, blah. And actually, the more senior you can have those discussions, even within big companies, so one department to another, which is doing relatively similar functions, I think that was massive about getting our brand started. Once that was sort of bubbling along at a good enough level, it's a massive investment in brand itself. Brand is everything, being recognized as being a solution for something. We want to become the verb for our industry. We want to be a Dyson or a, something like that. We want to be thought of in that way, so that when you're talking about data, you're talking about how you solidate us to data, or some solidated data or something like that. Because that's when your brand recognition, then it's viral at that point. What the objective we've got to kind of got for ourselves is that right now we get, I don't know, hundreds of likes. Next year we want tens of thousands of likes. That's the sort of when things say, okay, that's an industry, that's a real voice in the industry talking about something. So we know we are in our vertical, but getting us to that point where people are really seeking opinion and that people are thinking about us first. So the first steps on that journey were making sales. You've been on this show now, so you can expect tens of thousands of likes. Yeah, that's why we're here. Moving it further forward. There we go. We've won together. Guys, that was an absolutely cracking hour, and I can't believe how quickly it's gone. I'm so grateful to all of you. I know how busy everyone is in this sort of phase of hyper-growth. So for you to spend the time just to sort of talk through those pearls of wisdom has been an absolute pleasure. I always say that I come off these shows just pumped up, and the team sort of dread me coming out, cracking the whip and getting overexcited about everything. It's going to absolutely be what happens again today. Thank you to everyone who's attended, listened. I hope you've got as much value from this as I have. We will be putting it out there on all our channels as well, and making sure that this lives on with various snippets and recordings as it moves on later on as well. To Liam, to Philip, to Tom, and to Ramonda, it's been a fascinating conversation. I'm so delighted that all of you have achieved so much over the course of last year. It's been great to see, and I wish you nothing but more success over the rest of this year and beyond as well. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you everyone for watching. Thanks so much for a great show.
Thanks everyone.
Thank you.